What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, I'm going to be talking about Monkey Man, Dev Patel's directorial debut, and also he stars in this film. He's the lead role. And man, I just want to get right into talking about this film because I cannot believe what I just watched last night. But listen, before I get into that, two quick things. If you guys like this video and you'd consider dropping a like, that would mean the world to me. And also, if you want to subscribe, if you want to stick around to the channel, you guys like movie-related content, I'm your guy. Second thing, really quick, stick around to the end of this video if you want to see my final verdict, my final rating of this film after my review and after I talk about it. I don't want to waste another second because I want to just get right into talking about this movie because, guys, I'm just going to be completely honest with you. Yesterday, when I went to the movies to go see this film, I wasn't really in a movie watching mood. As someone that ends up watching a lot of movies throughout the year, whether it's for personal enjoyment or to review, there's some movies that you're just not really in the mood to watch, but you just have to anyways. And even though I was decently excited for this film, that's what this movie was. So I went into it kind of just like, oh, all right, fine, we're here at the theater, it's gonna probably be pretty good, whatever. But what I didn't expect is that I was going to see an action revenge masterpiece. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. I don't just throw around the word masterpiece. I don't just blindly throw love at movies. I have no problem with dissing a movie. This film is amazing. The main catalyst here as to why this film is just so unbelievably good is Dev Patel, whether it's when he's in front of the camera or behind the camera, because like I said, he is the lead role in this film and he directed this movie. And for those of you that don't know, this film was supposed to go straight to Netflix, I believe is the streaming service, but Jordan Peele watched the film and said, no, this is going to theaters, which I seriously respect. So he put his own company behind it basically to endorse it, Monkey Paw Productions, which is actually in the beginning credits of this movie. So it's pretty cool to see that a very talented director basically endorsed this film and said, hey, I'm going to put my reputation on the line for this movie. And now that I've seen it, I can understand why. Dev Patel is extremely talented. Just talking about his acting, because I guess you could say that's the least interesting thing I could really go over here. He is able to just portray this straight killer, this John Wick variant type of guy, but also just based on how his face looks, he still has this wholesome look to him. He still is a very nice looking guy to where you kind of feel bad for him. You understand where he's coming from. It's not like he's just some horrible person. He's able to portray that well, how he has this killer instinct and also he's a good guy on the inside. But moving on from there, what I really love about this film, the number one thing that just absolutely struck me is that you can feel that this is Dev Patel's style, his directing style. And what do I mean by that? Basically, since this is his first directed film, I expected this to be kind of based off of a John Wick, have a lot of, things taken from there. But all I could think about while I was watching this movie is how I could not really recognize any influences in this film. It feels like this is Dev Patel's style. Just like when you watch a Nolan film, you're like, yeah, you kind of get that Nolan style, or a Scorsese, or a Jordan Peele. This feels like his style. Everything is so raw. The colors are vibrant. The shots are up close and in your face. It's so unique, seriously. Getting into what makes it so unique though, it's not really told in a linear fashion. Honestly, it just took me 15 or 20 minutes to kind of get into this movie, but I think that's just because of the slump that I was talking about where I was just oh, I don't really feel like watching this. But after 15 or 20 minutes, you kind of understand what's going on, but you don't fully understand what's going on. And honestly, for the first two acts, you really only know 80% of what's going on. You're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I understand why our character's doing what he's doing, but I don't understand everything. And that's the thing that hooks you and just keeps reeling you in, and you're so interested to just find out why he's doing what he's doing. Then it's sort of revealed maybe towards the beginning of the third act, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Then that third act is just payoff, payoff, payoff. But since you just didn't really fully know throughout the first act and the second act, it makes things very interesting. And it's not really linear in that sense because we're seeing what our main character's doing, but also there's sort of these flashbacks that are, interwoven into the story to make it a bit almost confusing on purpose and just to try to, show you little flashes of what he's thinking and what he's sort of going through and what he's been through in the past. Because like I said, these are flashbacks. It's really great. It's interesting, and again, it makes it feel a little bit different. The last thing that I just want to touch on when I'm talking about this story is that the second act of this film is very strong, and like I said, because of that 80% thing where you still don't really know what's going on, it keeps it interesting, because I feel like a lot of movies, obviously they have a good first act, they're setting everything up, they have a good third act because they're paying everything off, but that second act can just drag and it can get boring. But there's a lot of very interesting things in the second act that goes on, sort of like reveals, and we kind of get to know a little bit more about our character that make it feel worthy. It's not like, okay, this is just the bridge between the beginning and the end. No, there's a lot that goes on in here that makes it very interesting, very intriguing, and on top of that, that makes it feel paced a bit more properly, I'd say, because you're not like dragging in the middle, you're not like waiting for this to kind of end, whatever. It's great. Guys, just to be clear, like, this movie is literally a masterpiece. I'm not exaggerating. This is an incredible film. This is probably going to be in my top 5 films of the year. Moving on from there, I need to talk about the action, because that also might be one of my favorite components. I can't even pick a favorite component about this movie because everything's so emotional. There's so much emotion behind the action, especially towards the third act. Once we kind of understand what's going on, like I was already alluding to, once we kind of understand where he's coming from, every single punch that he throws, we feel the emotion behind it. It's not like he's just senselessly doing it. No, he has this rage, this anger built up inside of him because he wants revenge. I don't want to talk too much about the story because I don't really want to spoil anything. With this action, getting into what I was talking about, Dev Patel's style. This entire film, from start to finish, feels disgusting. Disgusting. You might say, oh, isn't that a bad thing? Isn't that, something that you don't really want to try to be when you're making a film? The reality is, and I don't really know how else to put it, this is just a dirty ass movie. And what do I mean by that? Every single action scene, all of these characters are bloody, they're drooling, they're sweating, maybe they're wet, there's like water on them, they're just bruised up, they're cut up. It's nasty, and it makes it 10 times better. I'm not even joking. Every single punch. It's not like they're cutting away. No, you're watching these people just get socked in the face. You're watching knives go right into people's necks. Blood shoot everywhere. The blood, by the way, looks very real. They did such a great job. Not that I'm like a murderer or anything, but I'm just saying sometimes it could look really fake. And that makes everything feel so authentic and so real. The kills in here are so awesome. Like, I'm serious. Like, they're just sick, man. Like, I don't even know what else to say because I don't want to talk too much about them. One kill in particular involving a knife and teeth was so creative and so insane that I literally, like, in the theater out loud was like, oh, like, no way, because it was insane. It was so hype. Speaking of, things getting insane and hype, the action does kind of start off cool, but just not like at its best. And as the movie goes on, the action gets better and better and better, especially as it gets more and more emotional and as we learn more and more things. The color palette on this film, it's just beautiful. And one thing that I gotta say, and this is more of an analytical thing, this isn't really talking about the quality of the film. The budget of this movie is only $10 million, and I kind of noticed how they were able to save a lot of money by having a lot of really close-up shots, not even like during the action, like they're trying not to show you the action, but maybe just during like bigger set pieces, the shots are really close up, so you don't have to like build an entire set for something. That was very smart on their end, I've gotta say. I did notice that. Didn't take away from the quality of the film, but I kind of wanted to just point that out. And the thing is, all these shots being close up, I would argue add to the film, because again, like I said, this is just a dirty film, so it makes it just so uncomfortable. Like, you're in your seat and you're like, ugh, I got to see that punch really up close. On top of that, like I was saying, how, all these fights feel so real, I can see why Dev Patel, like, broke his hand and had all these other injuries that were, like, reported on production of this movie, because it makes sense. There's water everywhere. He's like really fighting people. There isn't like, I'm assuming, there's a stuntman maybe like on the side, but there's scenes where you see him, Dev Patel, fighting people, and it's really cool to see that, man. Just overall, the fact that the themes in here as well, which I didn't really go over too much, are just wonderful, especially if they dive sort of into like religion and how, I don't really know too much about like Indian culture necessarily, but wow, it was very powerful, the way that sort of like there was this underlying theme about like a protector and just oppression and these gods. I don't want to get too much into it because again, I don't really want to spoil it, but the themes tied into the emotional elements, which tied into the action, and everything was just so in line with each other, all leading up to this final act that just went so unbelievably hard. And also, one thing I want to give this movie credit for, and this is kind of just a bit random, but just like the final shot and the final little, 30 seconds that this movie ends on is very satisfying. It gives you just enough to where you kind of understand what's going on, but it isn't like dragging on. It's not like we have, we kill the final boss and then there's still like another 20 minutes left for some reason. No, it ends when it should. It knows when to end, and that's it. It's very smart in that regard. Dev Patel, for the love of God, I don't want to see you act in another movie ever. I want to see you directing. Like, unless it's your own movie, I'd love to see you act in your own movie. But man, please direct more movies. I really hope this film makes money. That would be so awesome for Hollywood, because this is an independent film. And man, God, this was just such a cool movie. Like, there really isn't even another way to describe it. This is such a great film. If I had to say negatives about this movie, honestly, I really have to nitpick here, and I mean, I'm really like clawing to try to even come up with a negative. The first negative would be that there's other languages spoken in this film, so obviously there's like captions on the screen, and the captions, honestly, are just pretty ugly, and they don't really fit the style of the movie. They're like yellow, and it's almost like impact font, and I was kind of just like, I don't know, this just like looks kind of like weird. It looks like someone in the movie theater like edited these in like behind the screen, and I was like, that looks a little bit off. Also, some of the audio mixing might feel slightly off, and again, that might be my theater, I don't know, but sometimes I couldn't really hear like the dialogue 100% necessarily. I didn't really miss anything super important. It was kind of just maybe like a little thing here or there. And the third thing would be that, again, I feel like maybe it does take you like 10 or 15 minutes to get into the movie, which is fine. That's pretty much how every movie is. But again, I'm really clawing here for anything negative to say. This is an incredible film. I give my flowers to Dev Patel. Great work, sir. And Jordan Peele, I could see why you endorsed this movie. The soundtrack's beautiful. I even forgot to touch on that. But listen, let's just get into the final verdict here, okay? I don't want to waste another second. This movie is going to be a 4.5, how would I do that? Maybe half a thumb, out of 5, 9 out of 10. Wonderful film. This is most likely going to be in my top 5 of the year. Maybe, top 10, whatever. It doesn't matter. God, guys, go see Monkey Man. Go support a more independent film. Obviously, it's backed by Universal. It was supposed to be on Netflix, but obviously Dev Patel is taking sort of a risk here. They almost were at risk of being shut down, believe it or not, like their entire production. This movie was almost never made because of budgetary reasons, because of Dev Patel's injuries. So yeah, man, I really salute them. This is a disgusting movie that I could not love anymore. But yeah, guys, that's going to just about do it for this review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.